Operation Floodgate is a brand new dungeon making its grand debut in patch 11.1. Let's not waste any time and jump right in. 1 minute boss guides for Operation Floodgate, let's go. Big Mama is an ad clee fight with a nice little damage burn to bolster DPS players' ego. Tanks, you're going to want to make sure you're gaining threat on each of the mobs and tanking the boss near the edge of the encounter space. This will be important later. The main mechanic you'll need to look out for is the Electro Crush Tank Buster. This deals a high amount of nature damage and applies a pretty nasty dot. Most of the remaining mechanics will come from the ads. These mobs will shoot the tank, charge at random players, and cast maximum distortion. This needs to be kicked as soon as possible. If the cast winds up, it'll deal AoE damage and push players back with every tick. Once the ads are defeated, the boss will cast Jumpstart, taking increased damage while also pulsing AoE damage. Healers, you're going to want to prepare to counter this. If you don't defeat all the ads within a minute, the boss will gain a shield that pulses ramping AoE damage, resulting in a quick wipe. Once the boss finishes the Jumpstart cast, move the boss to a new area of the encounter space and rinse and repeat. Focus the ads and burn the boss, and Big Mama will fall in no time. Tanks, when pulling this boss, make sure you're taunting Bront, since Geezle Quick Fuse is immobilized and remains in a few set static positions. Bront's Wallop Cast is a tank buster that you're going to want to be aware of. It's fairly easy to manage but will knock up all players within 5 yards, so try to stay away from your melee. Whenever Geezle jumps to a new location, make sure you're dragging Bront along to maximize cleave. During the fight, Geezle will randomly shoot party members and attempt to hit players with their BBBFG. Just make sure you're avoiding this. Shortly into the fight, Geezle will then spawn a set of bombs. This is the main mechanic of the fight. It's up to the players to remove all the bombs in the arena by using 2 mechanics. First, you have Geezle's Kinetic Explosive Gel. Once this is dispelled, it's going to also remove all of the bombs within its radius, so any player targeted should quickly navigate to the closest bomb, and the healer should dispel. Next, Bront will target 3 players back to back to back with a charge. First, DPS and healers will be targeted, and then the tank will be targeted last. You're going to want to line up this charge with as many bombs as you possibly can. The cycle will then end with one last dispel. Ideally, all the bombs will have been removed at this point, but if you happen to miss one, utilize this last dispel to clear the bomb. If the bomb expires, it'll do near lethal damage in the form of a damage over time effect. Just note that the bosses do need to die at the same time, or the remaining boss will get a ramping in rage buff. Swampface is a simple yet highly dangerous encounter. Tanks, Sludge Claw is a nasty tank buster that requires your attention. Make sure that you're using a large damage reduction whenever possible, and then once it hits, it'll leave behind a debuff that absorbs a sizable amount of healing. While the tank is busy dealing with that, the rest of your party are going to be linked via Razor Choke Vine. Not only is this almost a permanent damage over time effect, so healers need to be constantly pushing out healing, it also creates 2 pairs of players, and moving further than 14 yards away from your partner will grip those players together. This can become problematic on the Mudslide cast. This is a large frontal that targets a random player. Any players caught in this will quickly perish. During the PTR, it seems that the most common strategy is just always dodge to the left or clockwise. Last but not least, the boss will cast Awaken the Swamp, dealing slight burst damage and causing waves to spawn. Players will need to dodge this, all while being attached to each other. DPS players, do your healer a solid and use the defensive here. Right after this, the spell queue will reset, giving your healers a break for a small moment. Best of luck and Godspeed. Lastly, we have Geezle Gigazap. This fight will always start with a bang with the boss casting Turbocharge. This does high AoE damage, so healers, you're going to want to be prepared going into this fight, all while dodging these lines. This siphoning of power from Geezle causes the dam to rupture, spawning various swirls. Make sure you avoid these brown swirls here, they deal high damage. The water pools that spawn do nothing until they are electrified. This happens after the next few mechanics. Tanks, the Thunder Punch Tank Buster does insane damage and knocks you back. I recommend trying to position yourself up against the generator or the entrance of the room. After you're hit by this, it'll also apply a 4-second dot. During this dot, avoid standing in any water. This will be followed by Gigazap, which will target 2 random players. These players need to use the defensive, but also make sure that they're moving away from any water. You'll want to prevent electrifying this water to prepare for the Leaping Sparks. Last but not least, these Leaping Sparks will spawn and fixate players. You can tell which one's fixating you based on the red arrow indicator. These will chase players indefinitely until consumed by dam water. Players should feel free to run over the water as long as they aren't debuffed with Gigazap. Eventually, the boss will run out of energy and recast Turbocharge, resetting the phase. Long story short, avoid being electrified in water and pray your healer can pump. And that's it. Congratulations on beating Operation Floodgate. If you made it this far, feel free to hit the subscribe. I make Mythic Plus content, it's free, and you can always change your mind later. Best of luck in your keys, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.